Hey, good morning. How y'all doing? It is, well, Red Beard. It's a damn fine day to talk about a book, and we are here for a book review. We are here for a Beard on King episode, and I think this is episode 29, and we're going to talk about The Wind Through the Keyhole, a Dark Tower novel. I am not going to read the synopsis. I might read it. Should I read this? I don't know. Anyway, so this is The Dark Tower 4.5, but it was published, I think written and published, but definitely published after The Dark Tower 7 was already out there. So Dark Tower was out there in its completion. We, us constant readers, thought that was it. That was the end of it, and then came back and wrote another Dark Tower story. And it's 4.5. It takes place between Wizard and Glass and Wolves of the Kala. So I did this one. I just recently finished Wolves of the Kala. I have a review for that up. This one, it's hard for me because again, I've said multiple times how I prefer Stephen King's horror fiction to the Dark Tower stories. I do like how they tie all the other stuff together, but I'm just not like, for me, the gunslinger was kind of meh. And then I kind of really got into the characters and the drawing of the three in the Wastelands, as far as, Eddie Dean and Odetta slash Detta slash Susanna and Jake and all that. And Oi. I love Oi. But I'm at the point now where I'm, you know, I, I guess I really thought that, I mean, because I'm about halfway through Song of Susanna, and it's all right, man. It's just not picking up necessarily the way that I thought it would. And in Wolves of Kala, I'm looking for, I guess I'm looking for more of a traveling style book. Like, I mean, I'm thinking of like Frodo and Sam, traveling, and I like, and I love the idea of a map and making progress and looking where we're at, on this journey. And we know we're on a journey here, but in Wolves of Kala, we spent 650 pages in the same damn place in the little town of Calabrian Sturgis and all that. Now, the vast majority of that book is used to tell backstory on other things, namely Father Callahan in that one. But this one's kind of the same way, man. We don't really move Roland and them and Katet and crew along at all. It's a story within a story within a story, and I'll explain that. But um, again, we are right after um the events of Wizard and Glass, and we come to a river crossing. Cross the river, 4 or 5 miles up the road, there is a shelter. We need to find shelter because there is a stark blast coming, and it is a weather event. Um, you, it feels like there's heavy wind involved, but there's also this extreme cold, and it feels like when a stark blast hit, the earth is damn near wiped clean. Breaking trees and this and that. For me, the way I pictured it was that movie The Day After Tomorrow, where like it was just this immediate polar vortex type thing where everything flash froze. Like, New York City was immediate. Like, you went from normal weather to, like, if you walk outside your blood would freeze, that type shit. That's kind of the way I pictured it. I don't know how true that is, but I do know there's extreme cold and heavy wind and whatnot. And this has two occurrences of a stark blast in the same story. Roland and his crew are trying to seek shelter, and then in the story, there's also a stark blast event. So I'll get to that in a second. But so anyway, so they, get into the shelter. They have, they barely make it in there before the storm hits, and Roland starts to tell them a story about his childhood. And this story is about shortly after his mother died, he is sent out on a quest to find a skin man. There have been reports of of killings, of murders, and everyone believes this skin man, this shapeshifter, is to blame. And so he and Jamie, I drew a blank on. I wanted to say I wanted to use some of the characters from Wizard and Glass, but he and Jamie went out on this quest to find this skin man, and they meet some people. They go to a town that they're told stories of these killings, of what they witnessed, and a young boy. Roland believes this young boy can identify the skin man, so he hypnotizes him and gets some information out of him, and then they're waiting for Jamie to go out and bring in the suspects. And so at that time, he tells the young boy the story within the story within the story. Mm-hmm. And that story is about Tim. And Tim um, is a boy, again, in another small town. Lives with his mother. His father has died. They believe that he has died from a dragon. Now, this story, before I go too deep into it, and I'm not going to go super deep into it, but this is a true fantasy story. There are dragons, there are mysterious swamp people, there are monsters, there is magic, there is a tiger, there are wizards, there are mischievous fairy creatures, all in this story. Now that is the vast majority of this book. I mean, Roland and Eddie and Odetta Susanna and Jake. I mean, their part is very, very minimal. The Skin Man part is a little bit more, and then the vast majority is this fictional story that Roland's mother used to tell him, called "The Wind Through the Keyhole." It's about Tim again. Um, his father's died. He lives with his mother and his mother's. I don't know if it's officially his stepfather yet or not. I don't know if you can hear the dog barking, but the dog's barking. That is a very fantastical creature out there, a big white fur monster. That is the bane of my existence on most days. I love that dog. Anyway, so Tim, um, one day the Covenant man comes, tax collector comes to collect taxes, uh, invites Tim out to meet him in the woods. He goes out there, meets this dude, very mysterious, weird, odd type dude. And he tells him that his father was actually killed by his new stepfather. And there's his body right there, by the way. Um, and um, and yeah, it wasn't a dragon; it was your stepfather. This and that. So finds his father's body, gets his father's hand axe, and but the covenant man also shows him a vision of his mother being beat severely by his stepfather Kales, and beaten so bad that she goes blind. So eventually the covenant man reaches out again and says, "Hey, you come back to the woods and see me. Get you on this quest to get something that will actually cure your mother's blindness." And so that's the quest with the dragon, the monsters, the mysterious swamp men, the mischievous fairy that tries to mislead Tim on this path. He eventually, after through going through all that, comes to a Stark Blast is coming, another Stark Blast. I told you, and there's a Dogan, basically a shelter, but the only way to get in the shelter is there is a key around a caged tiger's neck. And so he, you know, through no, I mean, through hard work, through, not an insurmountable task here, befriends the tiger. You're going to die too out in this Stark Blast, whatever. Gets the key, unlocks. They spend the night together under this magical blanket that starts at the size of like a handkerchief and ends up being the size of a massive blanket, rug, whatever. It keeps them warm. They spend the night together, and come to find out this tiger is actually Merlin. And Merlin gives him a potion to go back and cure his mother. And yeah, that's the gist of it there. Magic carpet, forgot they're not really magic carpet, magic blanket, flies home on a magic blanket. So again, a lot of fantasy stuff in this story within the story within the story. And then that's pretty much it. Goes back home, and there is a climax scene that I will not tell you what happens between Tim and his mother and his abusive stepfather. I will say that it involves his real father's hand axe, though. And then we close out the Skin Man part of the story, and Bill has identified the Skin Man, the killer. The dude turns into a snake. He's not a werewolf. He's a snake or whatever. And so that comes to a head, and then that story within a story. We've already wrapped up the third one, but the story within a story is then wrapped up, and then we kind of come back to Roland and his crew, and the Stark blast is over, and they're preparing to move on. But really, for this book, they're in the same place the whole time. And again, I dug this one. I probably liked it a little bit more than Wolves of Kala. We'll call it 3.5 stars. I mean, my favorite thing about Wolves of Kala was Father Callahan, and maybe that's okay. But I feel like I'm supposed to be loving the parts about Roland and crew. But anyway, like for me, I feel like I'm in this place where like I'm trying to get to the end of the Dark Tower regardless of whether I'm really enjoying it or not. And I feel like I've done two books back to back where Roland and crew haven't really advanced. So, and I know this is 4.5, and I know it came after the fact and all that, but anyway, just thinking out loud, so to speak. But again, glad I've done it. Glad it's another unread king that is no longer unread. Like I said, I am halfway through Song of Susanna, so that's next, and then I'll do the Dark Tower, and then I will finally be able to put that check on my reading list or whatever of having made it all the way through. So yeah, that's it. Didn't I mean, like I said, I liked it's short for a Tower novel. It's pretty short. I mean, because really after the Wastelands, I think they were all pretty long. Um, but yeah, probably 3.5 stars for me for The Wind Through the Keyhole by Stephen King. Well, Redbeard, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying all your books, all of them, as much as I am. If not, you're reading the wrong damn books.